Hi, on this winter solstice, most people are asking themselves what on earth is going on in the world. Well, I'm an amateur microbiologist and researcher. I'm going to talk about the virus briefly and what is the global plan all about. Back in February, early March, I myself was wearing a mask in crowds, and I was advising my wife to do the same because at that time we didn't know what we were facing, what we're dealing with. But it has become apparent, thankfully, it wasn't as dangerous or as deadly as was first thought. Now, what are we facing? It can only be described as medical terrorism. It literally is medical terrorism because they are telling us to be afraid. It's brainwashing, it's torture, psychological torture, pure and simple psychological torture. Fear-mongering from the government, from the press, the mainstream press at least, and no one seems to be able to critically think what is really going on. Of course, any deaths are a tragedy, and for the people facing family members, etc., dying, it's not nice. But we have to be realistic. They stated in the last 28 days that there's been 18 deaths, and they're talking about another lockdown. You have to question why they're doing this. Back when the virus first became apparent, and they've labelled it so many different things, but what they don't break down is that coronavirus and COVID-19 are kind of two different entities. Coronavirus is the virus. COVID-19 is the disease, a respiratory system disease caused by coronavirus. So when they say all these people are asymptomatic, or Trump says children can't get COVID-19, or, virtually impossible, well, it's basically true, because virtually no children get COVID-19. They may carry the virus, and many of us may. They say the numbers are growing. If we're to believe the tests, which many have said they're so flawed. But that is the so-called asymptomatic, having the virus and showing no symptoms. Because you don't show symptoms of COVID-19, a respiratory disease, unless you get the disease. And most people, thankfully, don't. Well, they certainly don't show the symptoms of the disease. Lack of information makes it very difficult to define the line from the virus to the disease. There's so little information. And basically, I've heard virologists speaking, and they flip from one phrase to another without making any distinction between them. There is no distinction made. So let's break down the virus in a small way. It's a single RNA stranded virus, which means it's pretty much the same as a cold. Now, why was I scared or worried, concerned back in January? Well, because when a new strain, when a new virus comes about in the public domain, there's mutations, and in the very early stages, these can mutate into very dangerous viruses. Thankfully, it didn't. I mean, though in the very early stages, there were some strains which were very strong, very deadly. And what tends to happen is, unfortunately, is it affects the people and it knocks them down. So, you know, they're not out there spreading it. They're either in isolation or, unfortunately, they die. So the dangerous strains, you know, they die out very quickly, normally. So, and what tends to happen, you worry about what they call gain of function. So the virus, it gains function. In the medical world, it becomes more dangerous, more deadly. But the nature of a virus, once it's come about and once it replicates itself in many, many hosts, it changes. Of course it changes. It changes millions of times in a very fractional way, and hundreds of times in a way to say there's many strains. But by its very nature, it wants to survive. So it doesn't want to kill the host. So generally its gain of function doesn't get worse. It gets less and less. And that's what's happened now, you know. So I mean, you have to say, why in the world are they going to have, you know, this so-called second wave and a lockdown, when all they keep talking about is numbers of infected people? We want to know how many people are sick in hospital. We need more facts on this. But most of you probably know it's not about the virus. Come on, surely you know that our governments do not care about us. They do not care about lives. You know, 160,000 people are maimed or killed on the roads every year. Look at the effects of what's happening to people in this lockdown, you know. Look at the effects, the possible effects after Christmas, once the true financial effects of these lockdowns, these draconian measures start to take place. You know, we're going to have problems. I don't want to scaremonger, but we're going to have huge financial problems. And you have to ask yourself, why are they doing this? Why, you know, people have, when I've told people what's going on, they've said to me, why would governments, you know, why would Britain, why would the government deliberately destroy our economy if it wasn't so dangerous? Why would they do that? Well, that is a big why. That is because they are doing as they're told. This is a dictate from a global power. This is a dictate to all countries. All countries are doing the same thing at the same time. More or less the same time. Regardless of what some other countries have done, the spikes are all the same. The so-called curves are all basically the same. You know, some of the third world countries is virtually not affected, you could argue. So what is going on? I can only tell you, this is a deliberation. It's a deliberation to stamp down on people, to take control of people. And the ultimate aim of that is to do away with currencies, to have a digital global currency system, which will be run by one body. And you know, once that takes over in a one-bodied currency system, once they've crashed the economies of the world, they can move straight in. They've been wanting to do that for ages. You know, I've been saying that for a long time. I've been called conspiracy theorists. I'm afraid it's conspiracy fact. And if people don't start to say no, if you don't stand up and make a voice and make your claim and say no, you know, we're free people and we can make our own decisions. You know, I haven't even touched on the vaccine in this video because it probably would be, you know, it'd be cut. I wouldn't be able to post it. I mean, there's a lot I could say about that. You know, even before this coronavirus, I've talked out about vaccines. So, I mean, you know, there's a whole nother ballgame to that in the matter of control. I won't go into it really, but perhaps in another video. But you need to make your thoughts clear. You need to put your thoughts out there. You know, stand up for what you believe. Stand up for what you feel in your heart. You know, what they're doing to people out there, the distancing, the social distancing, the masks, you know, nothing should be mandatory. You can do anything you want to do on this planet. Anything you want to do, as long as it doesn't hurt another living being, you're free to do as you choose to do. And you must maintain that. You must maintain that freedom. Because if they feel that you're consenting to what they're doing, they're going to do it. Unfortunately, I think they're going to do it anyway. It's written. But we need to lessen the effects of this. We need to make sure that we have the right to say no. And things what are coming, we're going to need to say no. Well, I hope I made myself clear. There's many things I'd like to say. It's a long time since I've made any videos. And I can only say, please stay safe in this time. And, you know, thank you. Thank you for watching the video. Thank you.